The Todd Shapiro Show.
Time to hit the button!
On Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
We got Lance on the phone. Hi, Lance
How
Lambert. How are you, brother?
I'm good. How are you doing, Todd?
Well, dude, I was at the Raptor game last night. Big sports guy, big heartbreaking loss. It's an emotional roller coaster having your team in the finals, in any finals. And so I'm doing, me personally, great. A little hoarse of a voice, a little bit. Maybe I might have had a few too many pops last night. But I'm a long-winded answer. I'm doing terrible, Lance. I'm doing friggin' terrible, man.
Are you? Man, your team, I got to tell you, and I'm originally from Northern California. I won't elaborate any further on that as far as teams I prefer. But having said that, it was quite a wake-up call being up there last week, and I got in, about 10 o'clock on Wednesday evening. So by the time I got to the hotel downtown Toronto next to the Expo Center, the Raptors and Warriors were in full force. That was kind of interesting, being in a lounge, or in any setting for that matter, where nobody was rooting for the other team. At least here in the States, you have a few crossover fans. No, every single person was a Raptors fan. So I was a little out of place, I won't lie. But that team's been rocking it, man. Congrats to you guys for getting that far. I mean, it's or getting this far, I should say, rather. I mean, that's a huge deal, and it's well deserved. Canada definitely needs more wins, So I thought it was neat to be a part of it and see all the energy there. And there's a few baseball games going on while I was in town as well, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a brilliant time right now, and we're very committed as fans to the game, and it's really, really special time, as you know, and having been to places where there's so many championships. And let's think, I'm going to try to tie this into cannabis somehow, but maybe people can be cheering and supporting cannabis in your country one day, the way they do sports teams, if you ever legalize the damn drug. Are you getting any closer on that front, Lance?
The STATES Act is trucking along. There's a lot more support behind the Safe Banking Act, which is just like it sounds, safe haven banking for legitimate, legal, licensed businesses in this industry, in this country. That has moved on through Congress to Senate. So we're very optimistic about support there. The STATES Act, a little different story, but there's several acts and bills that are on the Hill right now in D.C. Long story short, Rohrabacher, I think, put it best. The plausibility, and I think this is a consensus of several senators and ex-senators, the plausibility of legalization by 2022 seems to be the buzz. That's kind of the time that everyone's looking out, and that's what I felt. I said within the next 2 to 3 years, just as much, that we have going on, and again, not just domestically, but what's going on, it has been going on in Canada, what's been going on in Mexico, so all of North America, and then internationally. I mean, you've got right now, there's a lot going on the continent of Africa. There's a bit of movement over in Asia. So it's a global thing, and all moving in the right direction.
I saw a report, a really interesting article just earlier today, Lance, and it's sort of, you should never, chuckle's not the word, but someone died is what I'm saying. They said the title of it was "A Woman Killed by Cannabis in First Ever THC Overdose in the U.S., a Coroner Claims." And then they kind of go on in smaller print to say, experts cast doubt on the findings amid a minefield of attributing deaths to the drug use. And like, it's funny, though. It looks like, there's still sort of smear campaigns on this drug, and may this lady rest in peace. Do you sort of find that hard to believe that could happen from vaping?
I find it extremely, extremely hard to believe, and this is just going back on my several years of having conversations with some brilliant minds in the science and the medical fields in this industry, even talking to folks like Sue Sisley, who are very well established and, of course, have doctrines and focused on this industry and specifically on this plant. So, if you look, one of the articles I see in Coroner Claims Woman Overdosed on Cannabis, scientist calls bull shit. We'll just leave it at that. And I think that's the consensus from everyone, because it's going back to the education on the fact that everyone has an endocannabinoid system. All animals, all mammals do, short of insects, have an endocannabinoid system. So for us to be able to overdose on something that interacts with our body and is possible for our body to process, yeah, you can have too high an intake, just like you technically can have too high an intake of vitamin C or echinacea or other natural remedies, but to actually die. And you're right, I think the underlying, for one, it took place in Louisiana. I'm not trying to knock the South or put down states like Louisiana or Oklahoma or Alabama, but being a little small town in a corner who probably doesn't come across something like this that often, I think that's what a lot of scientists and doctors are taking into question. And I'd venture to guess that if it's allowed, that there might be a secondary autopsy to actually look and see what was going on, because supposedly she did have some sort of bronchial, some sort of infection going on.
Yep.
And she's just prescribed over-the-counter medications to help solve with that. So if she was smoking while she had some bronchial issues or lung issues, again, it could be a factor thereof. But technically, to say that someone overdosed of THC, I'm not buying it, and I don't think a majority of any smart individual would either.
Yep. Another article that I'd read this week, Lance, was that Ottawa was asking the U.S. to keep an eye on cannabis pardons at the border, meaning that Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale over here is acting the U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, Kevin McAleenan, to carefully note that Canadians have been pardoned for cannabis possession crimes at border crossings during a meeting in Washington. And basically, the Canadian press is reporting that this request comes ahead of a parliamentary bill right now in this country that is under consideration, which would ease the pardon process for those convicted of smaller possession charges now that obviously legal in Canada. So it's still an interesting thing, though, because the states might go, no, you're pardoned, but you still can't get over here.
Yeah, and that's where I've talked about this before, not necessarily proud to say, but, I watched the show Border Patrol, and I know it's a little dated. Most of the episodes I'm watching are 3-4 years old, but it's so interesting how far we've come on the border. But having said that, it's still very much an issue. There's individuals, I've mentioned it before, that are in the industry that were honest and did divulge that they were working in the industry. Not that they aren't touching the plant. They're a non-plant touching company, just like Boveda is. But still, they were given indefinite bars. They've since gone and fought that with, obviously with legal support, with an attorney, and were able to get it lifted. I do hope things go in the right direction, because you look at Ontario, you look at Massachusetts, you look at parts of California. While it might still be at city and municipality levels, pardons are happening, and it's good to hear. And it's obviously for minor possessions, right? Typically, the pardons that are happening in cities, both in Canada and the U.S. right now, are currently possession of cannabis under an ounce. So in other words, without intent to distribute or without intent to resell. So by all means, I mean, at the end of the day, you guys, it's a plant. If it's something that someone was using for self-medical benefit or for their own personal recreational use, we need to unring this bell of prohibition and reefer madness. It's what it comes down to.
Lance Lambert from BovedaInc.com. They're global leaders in two-way humidity control. Boveda being everywhere. Everyone knows your product, man. You guys have such an amazing reputation in the industry, and you were at the big Lift Expo in town the other week when you dropped in studio before it. How was the Expo? And second part of the question, did you sort of see anything new?
That's a great question. So I've been doing Lift for a few years now, and we definitely look at Lift as being one of those primary shows north of the border. You also have Cannabis and Grow Up, but Lift is one that is a very nice balance of both business to business and business to consumer. So it does give me a good sense and vibe of where the industry and market is in Canada specifically. And so I'd say this year it was a little bit calmer. This is something I've seen in other markets post-legalization. We saw it in Colorado. We definitely saw it along the West Coast and now see it in the Midwest. Things are a little crazy and exciting right at the cusp of pre-legalization. And then once things go legal, there was still, don't get me wrong, plenty of great people and solid energy and phenomenal brands and products. But it just wasn't quite crazy and hectic as it was pre-legalization the same time last year. Having said that, too, as far as new products, one thing that's happening is the industry shifting a little bit. As it matures more, I wouldn't say as much new products as it is a diversity in products. So now we're seeing a little less of the grow-centric products, a little less along the lines of nutrients and lighting and tents and all that side of it. And we are seeing a bit more along the lines of consumption, the different iterations thereof. Again, a lot of the talk was around the fact that Happy to say here on your anniversary on October 17th that concentrates are going to be coming into fruition. I think Canada, again, I've said it before, I think this slow and low approach that the government in general has had in Canada is spot on. I think for them to start with flower and to progress into concentrates, it makes sense because you get into some of these concentrates, especially oils and tinctures, and you can get anywhere from a 65 to 95% concentrate of THC. I'm not a fan of that because I'm a medical advocate. I don't think that much THC is needed in any situation. It's a good balance of all cannabinoids. But the fact that the market's getting prepared for it, at least on the business side, is good to hear. I do know that Health Canada does have a little ways to go as far as sorting the final rules and regulations, though, before it comes into fruition.
So was it are these trade shows still are they beneficial to companies like BovedaInc.com?
Yeah, I'd say 100%. It's constantly growing. There's over 120 licensed producers, or LPs as we call them in Canada. A lot of them are still getting online, as we say, and a lot of them are still ramping up. So it's something that, again, any smart company is doing in the space. They might have max output of, say, 500,000 kilos a year, which is not uncommon for some of the larger publicly traded LPs. But they're taking one step at a time. A lot of them are starting with 20 or 30,000 annual yield and then going up from there. So for us to be a part of it, and also, it's interesting for Boveda specifically, and there's other products out there, I'm sure they're similar, it's a time and place. So some of them are so busy sorting out the grow process and everything that comes with that, or the packaging or the distribution, that we tend to be a little bit of an afterthought for them. It is unfortunate because, in my opinion, it's a campaign I personally drive. It's all about saving the terps. You got to save the terps, save the quality of the cannabis. And again, at least on social media, the mass public in Canada has been very vocal about that the flower's too dry, that the quality is subpar based on what's paid for and the time waited for it. But slowly, the industry is coming around to realizing that this quality does matter, and it is a concern of the consumer. So there's still definitely a place for ourselves and others to be at these shows and events and to constantly educate. Because as we always talk about, Todd, you and I are both huge advocates of education. That's where you always start in conversation.
Do the shows do a good job of that in general, having speakers? And I was at Lift Expo a few years ago, and I meant to go this weekend, but my wife's away, so it's just tough getting away from my kid. Because you apparently got to get them babysitters when they're 3. I didn't realize that. So, no, I didn't know. I'm not really a good dad. But they need a dad expo actually and dad lessons, to be honest. That I could really use that one. Forget about the cannabis.
I shared with you before.
What's
Other
that?
countries, they have daycare on site at events. I'm still floored. Is the one in Prague, is one in South America, one in Australia.
Oh, that's very bright for like a 19+ event. Then you can have daycare for. That's really clever. I'm going to propose that to Lift Expo. Seriously, that's very clever because it is tough. People want to get away, but they can't get away from their kids.
True.
Man,
they do try with education, and they do try to knowledge. Some of them are a bit more on the pay-to-play versus true editorial. And what I mean by that is just, if you sponsor, you're able to contribute.
Yeah.
Not that there's nothing wrong with it. Every industry does that.
Oh,
but,
for sure.
There's something, there's something to be said about the ones that do seek out those true experts, and individuals in this industry are making such a huge impact. Again, there's just so many doctors and scientists that put their own careers and names on the line to study something that's been taboo for decades now around the world. So to hear those type of individuals speak and share their news and insight, for me, is priceless. So that's always a good experience at the shows. Lance
Lambert, BovedaInc.com. We have a caller, John from Michigan. Hi, John.
Hey, Todd. Hey, Lance. How are you guys?
Great.
Good.
I think I just, Lance, with the story Todd was talking about the woman in Louisiana, I think the best phrase would be grasping at straws. And I think we really should pay more attention to the doctor in Ohio that was recently indicted for killing 25 people with opioid painkillers and overdosing them. And I believe there's another story in Germany with a nurse that may have killed up to 85 people, and I think that might involve opioid painkillers as well. And I just once again, let's get off the THC thing, and I don't think there's any possible way she overdosed on that. Anyhow.
Yeah, I completely agree, I think what you're talking about, the opioid epidemic. I mean, the fact that they're arresting CEOs of these large pharmaceuticals for racketeering. That gives us a good idea of just how out of control. I know we hear so much in U.S. news about the opioid epidemic, but I think we're only getting a tip of the iceberg as far as what's really gone on over the past several years in specifically our country, right? I mean, it's just these were legal drug dealers. So,
I don't know if Todd knows this, but it was highlighted on 60 Minutes. The same prosecutor who was a state attorney general at the time, who went after the big tobacco companies, is now going after the not so much the manufacturers, but the distributors like McKesson and some of the other big ones of opioids. So he is using the foundation of the tobacco lawsuit and his background now to go after the distributors of opioids.
Good.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Definitely need it, right?
And,
definitely need it.
yes. And I just want to go in one different direction with you because I know your product is not only for cannabis, too, but also for guitars. Do you also do, out of curiosity, other stringed instruments? Because I know other stringed instruments are also humidity sensitive.
We do. We definitely do. Along the lines of violins, ukuleles, believe it or not, we've segued into brass instruments. So for actually wicking out the moisture that you find in some of those in flutes, clarinets, saxophones. So we've definitely gone into a whole other direction. Yeah, very much so. I do appreciate that. We love being partnered with folks like Taylor Guitar. That anyone that's a musician, they are the coveted acoustic guitar out there, and I think it just speaks volumes that they understand the value of maintaining quality in their product. So yeah, we spanned pretty far in the musical side of things as well. Thanks for pointing that out.
Thanks, John, for the call, and thanks, brother, for the great points.
You're welcome, Todd. And hey, I got to come up with a hashtag. I'm getting on Twitter because of you.
Okay, dude. Get on Twitter, man. Get on.
That's cool.
I missed what did he say, Bilal? I actually missed it. I missed what John said. Hey, it's funny. I was thinking about this because I feel like I'm losing a bit of my hair there, Lance, and the crowning a little bit. I'm 46 in a week, and that's okay. I don't mind. I wear a hat anyway. But someone told me moisture's good for your hair. I'm like, you need Boveda to help grow hair back.
All right, I'm going to get my R&D team on that.
I'm serious, dude. You just wear it under your hat. No one will know. And then in a month, you got more hair.
There you go. Hey, we're open for everything. Everything needs moisture. That's one thing I learned working for this company. You joke, but leather and wood and hair moisture is a factor in every equation. It's incredible, even in the middle of the desert.
Well, and who wants dandruff, right? It'll help with dandruff at least.
Yeah. This is true. Oh, man. Great tangents today. I'm loving it.
Hey, dude. We can't always talk cannabis all the time,
That's true.
Hashtag Boveda Cannabis and Boveda Herbal. You guys are, it's really cool, Lance. Like, we've been working together, and Lance and I are, we're close on, and, maybe doing other stuff over time because he's just so great to be around. And he's so knowledgeable. I'd have Lance as an advisor for anything. And the team, though, the Boveda team, I swear to God, anywhere I go, I'm not just saying this. They talk about you guys in such high regard, and they talk about the product in such high regard, and that helps elevate my brand. So thank you again for everything.
Hey, thank you. And hey, to the masses, it's Hemp Week. Go out and celebrate. This is the week that we recognize hemp the world round, trying to normalize that industry, which is obviously close to home. So definitely one thing I want to send a shout out to, because there's a lot of fun.
Hemp Week? Is that how they say it? Hemp Week.
There you go.
Hemp Week in the house. Hemp Week in the hizzy.
On this show.
Oh, dude.
Always love working with you. And yeah, definitely do enjoy Hemp History Week. I'll send you some fun facts.
Hemp Week.
The rest of the week, Todd.
Hemp Week in the house. Sorry, dude.
Love supporting you and love that you support us.
All right, my man. We'll talk. I'll give you a call anyway off air for later on this week.
All right, sounds good.
Cheers. Lance Lambert and BovedaInc.com. Man.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.